And on the seventh day, the Lord said,
Love me once, I know you'll love me twice. Love me once, it's time to roll the dice.
It's been a while. I know I shouldn't have kept you waiting, but I'm here now. We interrupt our regularly scheduled video game programming. This has been a special interest project of mine pretty much since I first watched the documentary. Today, I have prepared for you a rant, a ramble. We're going to be talking about a lot because I was so captivated by this television program and I haven't really been able to put it down. I also don't really know anybody who watched the show all the way through. So I'm hoping that in getting my thoughts down on the page and broadcasting these thoughts publicly will just help me put it in the past. When I first watched the docuseries Pop Star Academy Katseye, I was enthralled, but I didn't quite understand my fixation at first. I adore a singing competition show. I'm also, unfortunately, a K-pop enjoyer. The invitation to peek behind the curtain and really get a look at the journey that these artists went on in order to be a part of this group was really enticing. I was gripped by this show to the point where I watched it 3 times, and sometimes the opinions that I see online about the girls featured make me feel like I watched a different show. To make it clear right off the bat, this is not going to be a video where I litigate the deservedness of the girls who made the final lineup. The moment has passed. I do think the results are interesting, and we are going to talk about how the events drove towards those results. I don't think saying someone deserved to make the group over someone else at this point in time is necessarily a useful conversation. The group exists and they're making great music. For anyone who happens to not know and you clicked here, hi, welcome, subscribe, leave a like, get the ad block out of here and let them play. Katseye is a girl group that was formed through a show called Dream Academy.
Dream, Dream Academy.
Produced by Hybe Entertainment, a major Korean record label, in partnership with Geffen, an American label who manages the Western distribution for a lot of Hybe artists. Dream Academy and Popstar Academy are 2 different shows about the formation of this group. Dream Academy is the survival show that aired on YouTube over 12 weeks, whittling down 20 trainees to a lineup of 6 through a nebulous mixture of fan voting and production riggery. If you're only watching Dream Academy, what you get is a polished set of videos that stay pretty focused on the performances and the prep work. There isn't really anything extraneous in these episodes. The missions get announced, there's some really concise rehearsal footage, then it's the performances themselves followed by an elimination. It's not like X Factor where we were getting clips of contestants at the house to really fill out a 42-minute runtime. They definitely weren't making this show to be a network television equivalent. It's designed to be easy to consume on mobile just based on the way that it's clipped. This makes even more sense when you consider the amount of work the girls had to do on their own to promote themselves and their fellow contestants to the public through social media, making it easy to jump between a YouTube performance and then their own personal Instagram or TikTok to get to know them a little bit more. Dream Academy on its own is not particularly interesting, which is part of why Popstar Academy, its Netflix documentary counterpart, was all the more fascinating because this largely mundane show had a lot going on under the surface.
There's a very fine line between competitiveness and sisterhood.
Popstar Academy, to some extent, shows how the sausage is made as these girls are developed through the intensive K-pop training system. The doc does a lot of things that I found extremely compelling. Perhaps the most interesting part to me is the fact that Hybe clearly funded this television program and they really positioned themselves as the villain. Like, it doesn't seem they were necessarily interested in protecting their own image. At times, I couldn't really tell if it was tone deaf or really smart because, unsurprisingly, a lot of companies, especially in the entertainment industry, behave in unethical ways, but it was really jarring how transparent they were being. They really just let it hang out. Obviously, they kept a lot of things hidden, but even what they did show was surprising, and it makes the girls look so good, especially the ones who didn't make the final lineup. In some ways, it almost makes up for the fact that they tricked them and subjected them to these really grueling circumstances. Structurally, the doc is really neatly packaged, and while it is a documentary, it does still feel like a reality competition show. The last 4 episodes follow the challenges that they had to do as a part of Dream Academy, and I think that storytelling impacted the first 4 episodes, especially because 2 of the episodes end with an elimination. This way, some cohesion is maintained between the doc and the survival show. The first half of the doc follows the prep leading up to the survival show. It's important to note that this is not a fictional series. Everyone that I'm going to talk about today is a real person living a life, working a job, out in the ether, because documentaries employ artistic techniques to get us to feel a certain way, and scenes are organized in a very deliberate way in order to point us towards certain conclusions. There are going to be times when I talk about these people like they're characters on a TV show, but I just want to set the tone that we shouldn't be essentializing them in totality. I'm going to talk about the roles that they played in the doc, which in terms of capturing someone's entire personhood is quite limited in scope, especially when it comes to 8 hours of footage trying to tell the stories of like 30 different people. We're not going to talk about every contestant in depth. I don't know. Trigger warning. I might not talk about your fave. Or I might talk about your fave in a less than positive light, and you're gonna have to be okay with that. I think Dream Academy treated all of the girls a bit more neutrally because it's not a traditional TV show. They don't have to story produce as much. So I felt in watching Dream Academy that the girls got relatively equal screen time. But if you're only watching the doc, it really feels like they didn't take some of the girls that seriously as contestants. But it's important to consider that Dream Academy was happening in real time. People were voting. The entire point was that it was supposed to be a call and response between the show and the audience. When those things are happening somewhat organically in real time, it's hard to really understand the outcome. But when it comes to Popstar Academy, hindsight is 2020. We already know the conclusion. It's difficult for them to maintain tension in some areas because we already know the results. And when it comes to making reality television like this, that's more personality oriented. Of course, it's hinged on the activity of performance, but if someone's not giving good TV, they might not get featured. That's why I keep referring to this doc as reality TV, because it feels like an episode of Drag Race, just it's shot a little bit more beautifully. There were some girls that I would have loved to get to know through a more equal doc, but I think the intention of Popstar Academy was to stir the pot, to rage bait a little bit. It's not equal when it comes to screen time, when it comes to treatment of the girls. It just isn't, but that's why we're here. We're gonna get into it.
You're already good. I need you to be better. Again.
A relatively small handful of the participants emerge as characters in the doc. We are aware of about 25 girls that they cast to participate in the program. It's an 8-episode show. Not everyone can be the main character. There's a lot going on, but I do think we can anchor this discussion to 2 girls. I'm about to speak reductively. Hold your comments. We have Manon, the untalented girl who makes the final lineup, but wasn't really a favorite amongst the training team and her peers. Then we have Emily, a really talented girl, beloved by all except the audience, so she doesn't make the final lineup. Besides shorter individual arcs, they're essentially the only girls who have plot lines that run the full length of the season. They're also not diametrically opposed. Manon is also at the center of the only interpersonal conflict between the girls. They were cast to be in a girl group and not to make reality television. So it's not surprising to me that they were pretty much well behaved the whole time they were in filming. A couple members of the training and development staff are also pretty central. Love vocal teacher Sylvia. She seems incredible.
Have a cry. I'll cry with you. But if anybody can do it, it's you.
Most of them don't get a ton of screen time beyond their roles as teachers. I do want to highlight Missy. She's the head of T&D, Training and Development. If you've ever seen The Promised Neverland, this is kind of a deep cut. Missy is a lot like Mama in that they both occupy really gray positions where on the one hand you could interpret them as being quite noble, or that they made a really hard choice but it was the choice that's on hand. You could also interpret them as being complicit or facilitators of the suffering of these children that they're supposed to be watching over and protecting. Missy knows the shit that they're about to put these girls through. She just holds on to it and tries to prep them without telling them as best as she can. Missy has a background as a professional dancer, and they definitely use this lens to frame the first couple episodes, which are almost entirely focused on dancing. The girls are also getting vocal lessons and doing some other media training, but we don't see that as much. But when it comes to dancing, we get a breakdown of the tiers. The girls are divided in skill. There's a whole section where, in case one wants to dispute that dancing in heels is like not feminist, they're seemingly already prepared for that criticism. They talk about how almost every woman in pop has had to learn how to dance in heels. We get confessionals where the girls are like, yeah, it makes me feel empowered. We get a lot of insight as to how dancing specifically works, and the first couple episodes hinge on the dance rankings especially. A lot of this exposition hinges on Emily. She's this amazing, amazing dancer. There's a lot of mystery surrounding their dancing ranks. No one is in rank A, and they don't know what it takes to get to rank A, but Emily is the first one to make it after her evaluations because she's just so, so good. I think it's important to establish training and development as one thing and the label as another entity. I don't think the trainers and the label are always 100% aligned throughout the doc. Emily seemed to not be a favorite of the label, but they really liked her at TND. And I think it's because the head of TND is a former professional dancer and her sister is one of their primary dance coaches. They rank each of the girls right off the bat. In the first couple episodes, we only see their dance placements, so it doesn't take into account the other metrics that the trainees are being evaluated on: vocals, star quality, visual performance, and attitude. Vocals and attitude are pretty self-explanatory. The other two, I think, are a bit more subjective. I think they use visual performance as an umbrella for not just like serving face when you're performing, but also, at least partially, it's influenced by how beautiful they think a contestant is, but I don't think that's the full picture. Star quality is really about having that X factor, whether it's like a magnetic personality, a certain radiance about oneself. In the first episode, they split the girls into 4 different categories for the audience that essentially convey the primary reason why these girls were cast. So we see the top ranking singers, top ranking dancers, the girls with the most star quality, and then we have the underdogs. The girls they cast have a wide range of skill levels, and obviously not everyone can be good at everything. By the time we get to the survival show, the girls range between 14 and 21. A lot of them are also quite young to be expected to excel in a lot of these areas, but the point of inviting them to a training and development program is in hopes that they get better regardless of where their starting point is. They basically take a chance on these girls and offer them an opportunity to build a skill set as opposed to expecting people to come in fully developed. We are brought into this process through the perspectives of Abby and Naisha, 2 girls who don't actually make it to the survival show, but they get a lot of screen time early on. Abby creates for a compelling first out. She's like 16, I think, when they filmed. She is not particularly gifted in singing or dancing, but she has a big, big dream of being a K-pop idol signed with Hybe specifically, and the show can really make a moment of crushing her dreams for the audience. I'm gonna repeat this same point throughout this discussion. When production is casting people, whether it's a show like Drag Race where only one person takes the crown, or Produce 48 where 12 girls win, casting agents and producers are gonna bring in people that the executives are going to be excited about. So typically when contestants are invited, production already has an idea in mind for them. It would be different as well if they weren't doing a survival show and a documentary on top of it. Otherwise, they could cast pretty neutrally. But here they have to cast with the intention of creating not 1, but 2 television shows that are worth our attention. Unskilled people get cast as underdogs because it's really easy for a narrative. If you're casting 20 girls and by the end of it, the label only wants a group of 6, 14 of those girls are going to go home. Everyone has come here knowing there's honestly a pretty high chance that it's not going to work out. And when it comes to developing an underdog narrative, first of all, we love to root for someone to achieve success who doesn't already have it. For the most part, we do like watching people get better and overcome a certain struggle. But you know what I mean? When it comes to people who they probably have intentions of getting rid of anyways, the worst thing that could happen is that they surprise you and then they become an audience darling. That's what that investment exists for. Honestly, the doc doesn't really focus much on underdogs. They unfortunately use them as fodder for plot. I do think that's what happened to Abby in this first episode. She really feels like the sacrificial lamb that they can cut just to have that hook at the end of an episode, especially for something like this where all 8 episodes dropped at once. If you end on a really enticing note, it's going to encourage someone to watch the next episode immediately. They get rid of Abby, who they brought on for star quality. They brought her on because she's likable, and they immediately replace her with Manon, who casting was really excited about because she's stone cold stunning.
I instantly knew
This girl's already a star.
She gets a whole segment filmed in Zurich. We get an apartment tour. We find out she's like truly the coolest girl in the world. She's a model. She writes poems. She paints freaky women who smoke. Say it with me, class. ITGIRL. She can't sing, she can't dance. They have her do an intensive before she even comes to LA just for a little bit of catch up because she's starting from ground zero, but she has that cool factor that really pulls up her average. And the first episode ends with her saying,
I have a gut feeling I'm gonna be in the group.
it's a fabulous soundbite, especially after getting rid of someone who was cast on a similar basis. Again, we have to operate suspending our disbelief because I know Manon makes the group. But if you're watching just the doc, no thoughts, head empty, and you skipped all of the Netflix key promotional images where it's just the final lineup of the group, this is a fun moment. It's a great way to finish an episode because Abby goes home tearfully and they bring on Manon, who's going to be the center of all of the conflict moving forward. Naysha has a 3-episode arc that I think exposes the intentions of the label when it comes to forming this group. Naysha's Brazilian. She's lived all over the world. She gives up her apartment in London to come to LA for the program, and she's a really talented dancer. The quote-unquote struggle they run into with Naysha is that her dance style is really expressive, and they reiterate time and time again that they're looking for blank slate performers who can achieve uniformity. It becomes pretty clear that the label has no specific direction they want to take the group in outside of it being quote-unquote global by including members from all over the world. But beyond that, there's no concept for the identity or sound of this group. This will come up momentarily. I think this is why Naysha, despite being acknowledged by production as a really good dancer, she wasn't being celebrated. I think if they wanted to make a group more like the Spice Girls, where having 5 mismatched members was the brand, Naysha might have had a way better shot. She was the person that I connected to most while watching the doc. To share a little bit about me, I have a theater degree. A lot of people do imagine theater and entertainment at large to be really queer-friendly spaces, which is true. I think they're more welcoming than corporate as an industry, for example. But theater especially is like a really wealthy, white, old, legacied institution. And this might be further informed by where I live. It is true that it's a hard industry to get into everywhere, but I found especially like my university experience and seeing what is rewarded by my industry was really disappointing. Elements of my theater school experience are very similar to how this conservatory TND program worked. And when it came to how the training staff talked about Naysha, I definitely saw some red flags that were aligned with my experience because despite wanting to create a global girl group, they're not necessarily celebrating difference. And obviously, I'm not an authority on the subject, but it's really evident that Naysha's art is informed by her blackness, and her skill was cultivated in those spaces that reward a really energetic performance. And despite them searching for a diverse group, I felt that Naysha was really othered because she's different from the other girls. She's unique from the other girls, but it's in a non-compliant way that the program just wasn't living for. And I experienced an amount of prejudice for being Middle Eastern, for being Muslim, for being gay, for being genderqueer throughout my experience in theater school, where you're really dependent on these people for feedback, and the feedback that you're receiving is not necessarily aligned with how you're being rewarded. One of the early performance classes I took was basically like, turn your trauma into spectacle for us for a letter grade. And I'll never forget, I got a B+, and the only feedback that she wrote for me was, very brave. Nothing else. She had nothing else to say about my performance other than, loved your trauma, queen. It's frustrating when you really want to do well and to pursue your dream, and you want the experience to be conducive towards working to a career in the industry, and it's just exponentially harder when they're not living for you for things that you can't control. I don't know, maybe that's my own projection. Maybe Naysha does not feel that way, but that's how I felt watching her in the doc. I felt she was mistreated despite her talent. I think the way they talked about Naysha was ignorant. And again, we don't see everything. It's a show. They showed us what they showed us for a specific reason, and they showed more than the training staff just dogging on her. But even the fact that they frame her as an underdog when the dance rankings show her as 5th throughout the early days is disingenuous. It shows that they acknowledge her talent, but like in a way, I think they want to downplay her skill to justify her elimination elimination a little bit more. I shouldn't say elimination. She essentially gets fired and has no notice to return back to the UK with no money. She has what's in her suitcase, and that seems to be it.
But I do sense it in the energy that something's about to change.
Naisha is pretty unceremoniously cut from the program. Missy learns that all of the girls have private Instagrams where they post rehearsal footage and, I don't know, pictures of them out and about. They made these accounts and allegedly they only followed each other. And even then, they allegedly had private stories that only the other girls were included on because they're under pretty heavy NDA. Like, they're not allowed to share publicly that they're being trained by Hybe, which ironic because we know that they were being trained by Hybe because they turned it into a fucking TV show. All of the girls are posting stuff, but Naisha posted a snippet of original music. So effectively, she has leaked original work. And according to Missy, she is jeopardizing the group. In a confessional, Missy essentially confirms that there is no vision for the group. And the reason why there's no vision for the group is because there's going to be a survival show. And that is what's going to actually determine the group. So they can't say what they're looking for. The girls are doing all sorts of songs, different genres, and leaking original music can set an expectation with the public. I do agree that leaking the music was bad. Technically, all of the girls breached NDA, but they did not send all of the girls home. Naisha had the more egregious breach of the NDA by posting the music, and apparently she had other followers on the account. That's what Missy says. Naisha says she didn't. The fact that she posted it on Instagram is already a breach. Instagram has an archive of that video now, and they have access to that original music that is not being published. The likelihood of, this massive company being like, we know this girl is training with Hybe and we're going to release the music and fuck up this operation, it's next to none, but it is technically leaked music. They don't really talk about the Instagram portion of it that much because whether or not she had followers outside of the program, the music is technically still leaked. They don't linger on that point very much. Missy is just like, sorry, Naisha, it's the end of the road. Go kick rocks. And they send her home. And they have this drawn out scene where all of the girls read their NDAs out loud. I do think that if Naisha was a production darling, they would have looked the other way. But again, everyone is cast with an idea in mind. And Naisha is someone they can afford to lose. And she's driving the story of the third episode. Because once again, it ends with an elimination. Hello, Dulcet Divas, editor me here. Another thing that I just realized, and this is the last thing I'll say about Naisha, is that even though they are trying to foster this group within the K-pop training system, there is no intention of having them rap. Most of the contestants were either brought on as vocalists or dancers. Naisha was brought on as a dancer, but in the first episode, we see some producers reviewing her audition material, and they highlight that her rapping ability is an asset, but that doesn't really go anywhere because they don't want any rappers for the group. It would have been another opportunity for the girls to show off their skills, especially for someone like Naisha who isn't vocally that strong and who already comes into training having some rap ability. It's just interesting that they highlighted that in the doc, but it wasn't able to go anywhere. Anyways,
More girls will be coming. Anybody could be that final member.
now we get to talk about the girls who actually made it to the Dream Academy phase. We've talked about this. They highlight Emily as the best dancer in the program. Bang Shi-hyuk, Hitman Bang, head of Hybe, responsible for creating BTS. Don't know if you've ever heard of them. He has a whole monologue about how in an ideal world, every member of a group will be good at everything, but that's a near impossible standard. So you have to cast people who excel and complement each other, but everyone should have at least a foundational skill level that makes them look good. When it comes to dance specifically, he says that each group should have someone who dances at a professional level. As he's talking about this, we're cutting back to Emily performing, and she becomes the A-rank dancer, really establishing herself as in the lead. Daniela, Megan, and Adela trail behind her as the other really strong dancers. When it comes to the singers, the standouts are all really good, but they supposedly lack something. Ilya has the best technique. She's vocal rank 1, but almost runs into a similar issue as Naisha, where she has a style that she really leans on and they don't like that. Sophia has a musical theater background and I guess her voice isn't poppy enough. They don't actually say. And the program sleeps on Carly. Justice for Carly Tanaka. She's a good singer, but she's another contestant that they just didn't really take seriously. At the end of episode 3, they introduce Lara the same way they did with Manon, with a confessional indicating that they just cast someone new for a specific reason. Manon was the it girl. Lara has the voice that will quote unquote sell fill stadiums. Whatever quality that Ilya, Sophia, and Carly lack, Lara possesses. And it's the cuntiest use of a chyron I've ever seen. The fact that they present her at the end and then underneath it slowly fades in vocal rank 1. It was really fierce. Uh-oh, they're still missing like 7 girls because they want 20 for the survival show. So they quickly cast in other people who won't have enough time to train, and they just toss them to the wolves. I am going to talk about all of these people briefly, but it might be helpful to remember that we have the originals and the people who were brought in. Some of the girls have been training since the beginning. As some people get cut, new girls are brought in. It gives a sort of timeless sense to the process because they have no idea what the end goal is going to look like. They don't know when they're close to forming the group. Part of bringing in girls is to disorient them and keep them on their toes so that they don't get too comfortable. Another kind of nasty tactic to ensure compliance. But the girls who were there from the beginning are Adela, Megan, Daniela, Carly, Ezrella, Lexi, Marquise, Ilya, Sophia, Brooklyn, and Emily. Then the contestants who are brought in over time are Manon, Lara, Celeste, Samara, Yunche, Nayang, May, Ua, and Hinari. This is our lineup of 20, all of varying ages and skill sets. They reveal to the girls that they're going to be competing in a survival show, which none of them were prepared for. This is the huge gag of the doc, the way these girls were coerced into participating in the survival show. None of them were forced to participate, but obviously there's an immense pressure to stick with it, especially if you're someone who's been training for the last 18 months. Are you going to throw it away because you're not prepared to go public? I think most of us in this position, especially if you're pursuing a career in entertainment anyways, would have stayed, even though the ethics are not present. They exploited the girls for TV. I'd be really curious to know what the contracts looked like, because on the one hand, the girls are aware that they're being recorded at almost all times, and they certainly had to sign something that gave the label permission to use their likeness for media release purposes. A couple of the girls hinted at suspecting there was more to this process beyond the doc. Carly has a confessional where she says she asked if the media training they received was for the sake of a survival show, and she was told it wasn't, so they were definitely misled. This is my speculation, but I feel like there was something going on under the surface because some of the girls seemed unbothered by this reveal. Maybe it's just they were more equipped to deal with public scrutiny. Some of the girls were really big on TikTok and Instagram and stuff, so it might just be that they're acclimated to having that many eyes on them all the time. I have a sneaking suspicion though that production told some of them, especially the girls who were cast right before the show started. Like, imagine flying across the world not knowing you're going to be on Survivor for Pop Girls and you're just thrown into it. Like, that's crazy. Also, just to be clear, even if it was in their contracts, most of these girls are regular people. Some of them clearly have a bit more access to wealth than others, but poverty is brought up more than once as the reason for being here, and seeking a better life for them and their parents is a common motivation amongst the cast. So I'm not saying that all of them should have been legally well versed in what the contracts were actually saying or reasonably could have afforded access to a lawyer. I don't think any of the girls have agents or talent managers. It's totally within reason that a 16-year-old wouldn't understand the full implications of a contract like this.
Now that we're in the survival show phase, the stakes are much higher.
The latter 4 episodes detail the competition. In my opinion, I think Dream Academy had less to do with determining the final lineup and was more concerned with determining the group's identity. We get tidbits of drama, but the show has to work really hard to spin a narrative. Again, these girls want to be pop stars. They're not Bachelor contestants and are pretty aware that they're going onto a television show to create drama. That's not really in the context. I was expecting there to be major conflict with the way this show was talked about online, but that just never really happens. After watching it, I remembered that K-pop fans are extremely sensitive and suffer from brain rot. The documentary lacks a true antagonist because it's not one of the girls, so the only parties left are the company and the audience. We clearly see this with how the label treats the girls, keeping Dream Academy a secret and proceeding to manufacture drama for the survival show and the doc, because the girls are too focused on doing their jobs to argue, and the audience was not necessarily kind to all of the girls either. Let's talk about the first mission. Episode 5 shows the girls being split into 4 groups. 2 will dance and 2 will sing. Now, there is some production rigory. I don't think these groups are necessarily equal. I do think they generally try to place girls where they'd have a good showing, but I do think one dance group and one vocal group have better chemistry together and are more suited to the song that they're performing. Production was pretty intentional with the styling, set, and song choices of these performances. Visually, you're not going to mistake them for one another. It's really easy to keep the performances separate in your brain just because they utilize these pretty stark aesthetic contrasts. I generally think all of the girls do well enough. I don't think the girls flub any of the performances throughout the competition. Some girls definitely excel, but I don't think anybody was like god awful at any point. In this first challenge, the major breakout performance was vocal team B doing Still Into You by Paramore. Beautiful arrangement. They're all great singers, but they complement each other really nicely. They performed well together. It was so good. Nayoung, Lara, Sophia, and Samara are all top ranking vocalists throughout the whole show. Celeste is a little bit lower, and I think that's represented in the final ranking as well. Vocal team A performs a mashup of Happier Than Ever by Billie Eilish and Dancing on My Own by Robyn, which I think is a shitty mashup. I don't think it's good. I think the songs tell 2 pretty different stories and they don't serve to reveal anything by being included together. I don't know more about what the narrator is going through. I'm confused. I think Dancing on My Own is a weird choice for like average age 18-year-olds. What business do you have singing about the club? You're not even allowed to go. I think a few subtle things compound to this performance being really lackluster. Ilya and Carly are really here to carry the vocal. Like Ilya is breathtaking at the beginning.
You call me again, drunk in your bands.
The other girls are more limited in their range. The variation in tone is a little bit wide, just in terms of how their voices sound together. And then the arrangement sucks. So like not only materially do these songs not make sense together, but the pace isn't kept. There's a lot of dead air where they just do gentle background harmonies because again, the mashup is bad. So they have to make all this extra space for the song transitions to make sense. So it feels slow. It feels like they sang less, even though that's not true. They should have just done Happier Than Ever. The flow would have made more sense. I would have believed it coming from these girls, and I think they would have had a better showing. The dance teams did Pink Venom by Blackpink. I did not wear black and pink on purpose today. I realized that after I got dressed. And the other group did OMG by New Jeans. I'm not a dancer. I have no meaningful insights. I think they all did well, but it might have been better to swap Hinari, the weakest contestant overall, with Emily so that this relatively low skill 14-year-old can have the cute song that fits her vibe a little bit more. And then we put the pro dancer in Pink Venom with the other pro dancers who can actually carry this more intense choreo. Ua is also a pro dancer, and I think her and Emily doing Pink Venom with the other 3 would have been really powerful. A lot of this episode is about how Hinari isn't going to be ready for the performance. Do we hear a lot from Hinari? No. We hear a lot about other people being concerned for Hinari because, again, she's a baby. She's had no time to develop. So the likelihood of her being successful is next to none. I think they cast her to fill a similar position that Abby did, where she's an easily justifiable first out because she's not really ready. She needs more time in the oven. Who knows where she'll be at 21. Also, if I was Abby, I'd be a little bit annoyed if they were like, we can't keep you. We don't think you're going to get good enough in a year or a year and a half. And then they cast Peace and Love to Hinari. I don't mean this badly, but some rando who's cute on Instagram. Like, I don't know why they cast her, but Abby at least would have had the benefit of months of singing and dancing lessons behind her. And Hinari didn't receive that benefit. Oh my God, am I bullying a 14-year-old? That's really not how I'm trying to come across. They played her. It's not her fault. The gag comes once the voting has been tallied, and this is where conflicts start to emerge because the end rankings of TND are not consistent with where the girls landed with the voting. We'll talk about the voting itself first, and then we'll dive in a little bit deeper. This first audience vote is extremely indicative of what the masses have an appetite for. And the whole point of Dream Academy, from my view, is that it's a marketing stunt to gauge consumer interest and fill an unmet niche. The voting is going to be skewed by the sensitivities of K-pop fans. You might have some marginal social media capture, but it's mostly going to be the K-pop girlies who care about the lineup of this group. And it's generally perceived, especially when the voting happened a couple years ago, that there's a major vocal drought in K-pop. There's been a rising frustration among fans that dancing is prioritized and no one can sing live anymore, and it's dubious whether they can sing at all. I do think to an extent, this informs how well the Still Into You group did, because 4 of the girls in this group landed in the top 5 overall. This signals that vocal performance is a high priority on this list. The OMG dancers also did way better than the Pink Venom dancers. The bottom 10 are mostly Pink Venom and Happier Than Ever performers. For dancing, I just think it's generally more difficult for normie people to know at a glance if someone's a good dancer. When it comes to singing, it's really easy to immediately know who stands out as a good singer and who's not so much. Most of us learn music from a very young age. We know to recognize when something is egregiously off pitch. So if someone's not even a competent singer, we can identify that pretty immediately. And you can also figure that out watching something only one time. But when it comes to dancing, you have to either watch the video 5 times or check out the fan cams in order to really get the full experience of the performance. So unless there's a flashy choreo moment, it's really easy for the vocalists to be memorable after only watching one time. I also think that everyone who did Pink Venom besides Hinari really suited the song, so it was shocking to see Adela last in the voting. Daniela was ranked 17. People were not living for them. A company person says that nationality and support from a person's respective country had mixed effects on the voting. Like, Sophia has unbridled support from the Philippines, as she should. She's incredibly talented. But Nayoung, who placed first in the voting, got more support from the US than she did from Korea. I think they tried to keep things as neutral as possible, despite the fact that we know the result of the doc. Like, I don't think they needed to try so hard to maintain this idea that anybody could make the final lineup for any reason. I think it's okay to acknowledge that nationality did play a role. In contrast, most of the white girls were not getting votes. Emily, Ilya, Brooklyn, and Adela make up 4 of the bottom 7. Part of this had to do with general nasty comments, getting called ugly, which is mean. You shouldn't do that anyways. In general, that's not a nice thing to do. I don't think that's the only reason they didn't get voted high. I think people wanted to see a group with 6 women of color. When it comes to the entertainment industry, there's a saturation of white performers. And if Dream Academy is subtly doing market testing, the company gets to learn that this audience especially has a really strong desire to see 6 women of color in the group, and they're rooting for girls who are really underrepresented in the West. And I don't want to present this as though people only voted on identity, because I think they also voted on talent. I think it's really special that we have this group promoting globally and they're all from different backgrounds. With the first mission, the plot is mostly centered around Adela and Emily getting scored low and Manon scoring really high. Adela and Hinari go home this round. In a mix of voting and production riggery, Hinari was 15th place in the voting, but production felt she wasn't ready, and Adela was last in the voting. From a narrative perspective, you have 2 really different eliminations. Adela is 4th overall at the end of TND, and she's essentially debut ready, whereas Hinari is extremely green. Adela is the Pangina heels of the season. Drag Race fans know what I'm talking about, where she probably really deserved to win. It just didn't work out that way. Adela was also a mother figure throughout the process. A lot of the girls looked up to her. The relationship between her, Emily, and Megan is one of the main friendships we see. In a jury of her peers, everyone really likes Adela and would love to debut with her, so it's a big upset that she goes home first. Production also felt that she would make a better solo artist than group member. Production was right. Adela is making great solo music. In terms of story production, these are great first outs. It continues to feed this narrative that no one is safe. Adela is also an original, so that kind of twists the knife even more because she's been there the whole time. She even has a conversation with her mom where her mom is like, okay, if they didn't want you anyways, why did they keep you there for so long? And Adela's like, girl, I don't know. It's very sad. In contrast, we have Manon ranking 4th place, and the girls do not like this. The girls have been building resentment for her over time. She skips practice a lot, and it's also alluded to that she had issues with production. Some of the girls were living in a house together, paid for by production, and Manon was removed from the house. We don't really know why. They said that she struggled with house rules and curfew, but we don't know what that means. Missy has a confessional where she says she wouldn't pick Manon for this group based on attitude, but we don't get a resolution until later. Skipping rehearsals is a big deal. I don't think they talk about it enough in the doc, but it messes up the whole mechanism because rehearsal can't happen properly if you're not there. Throughout my theater career, it was like constantly being drilled into our heads that we can't get injured and we can't get sick, which is high pressure. Obviously, things happen beyond your control all the time. But yeah, like showing up to rehearsal is kind of the bare minimum. It's really bad that she's not going. We also get a lot of Manon. Like, Yoonchae makes the group, but we get barely any content with her. She has one short scene with her parents when they go to Korea for the next mission. But like Manon has, I don't know, an influencer friend. We don't really know who she is, but she has more than one scene. She has more dialogue in the doc than some of the actual contestants. We see Manon's aunt's house. Manon's sister appears in multiple episodes. Manon has a big role. We do learn about her insecurities when it comes to participating in the process, and I am sympathetic to that. It is hard to go to singing and dancing school and everyone else can already sing and dance, and you're kind of there just like, well, what the fuck am I supposed to do? I definitely don't think that's easy, and comparison is the thief of joy. I do understand her struggle in that regard, but skipping practice is not going to make things easier.
I was really hoping that he will come through.
Oh my god, I was filming at an awful angle earlier. I look this tall and I'm practically out of frame. A video filmed in 2 different sittings. The children are being fed today. Adela and Lara are the main voices of ire with Manon from what is shown. There's a weird group therapy session with the girls. Apparently they were getting mental health care. We don't see any of their individual conversations, but they did film some one-on-ones with the therapist that were used as B-roll. I hope they were actually receiving mental health care off camera, and what they got on tape was just for illustrative purposes. Manon is sick, so she's not in this scene, which I will admit does make it look like they're talking shit behind her back. Adela was called a mean girl because of this scene. Despite the fact that her frustrations with Manon's attendance record and dedication are both valid. I've already said it, but the way these conflicts were discussed online, you'd think that Adela screamed in Manon's face, but even her anger here is pretty measured. Some people took issue with the fact that this conversation happened behind her back, or that the girls could have done more to lift Manon up, but they are at talent boot camp. It's not the girls' responsibility to uplift one another. Of course, it's nice, but they have a team of teachers who are also doing that, and they also can only do so much if someone just isn't coming. Lara then brings up how she thinks some girls did better based on looks over talent. I don't think she says this specifically about Manon. She says this separately, direct to camera, so it's outside of the Manon therapy conversation, but it is framed as being about Manon specifically. Lara and Manon are believed to have a long-standing feud, and the discourse got to the point where they had to post on Instagram Reels.
I just wanna be part of your symphony.
Anyways, 2 girls down, 18 remain. On to mission 2. Here, they're split into 4 teams doing Le Seraphim covers. 2 groups are doing Anti-Fragile and 2 groups are doing Fearless. The big challenge here is it's the first time they're singing while dancing. As far as we can tell from the doc, they trained in both separately, but didn't actually have to do a full-out performance during their evaluations. They just performed one of the skills and they were evaluated separately. I don't know if you guys know this, but singing while dancing is not easy. It requires a lot of stamina, a high level of breath control, and I do think one of the songs is much easier to pull off than the other. Anti-Fragile has more challenging choreo, especially for the person who's singing. Both songs have substantial portions that are lower. They both have talk singing sections, which makes vocal support more challenging because there's less tension in the parts of your body producing sound. A lot of pop music acts, while performing live, they'll pre-record some or all of these more challenging lines, or they'll put the backtrack way up to cover any sort of imperfections. But singing live while kicking your leg up into a standing split, that's hard. Kazuha doesn't even do it. And she originated the choreo. Maybe she's done it in concert, but definitely not on TV. The creative direction is similar to Mission 1. The styling is different. One group films in the day, the other group films at night. There's a little bit more overlap there. They're doing 2 hit singles by the same artist, but at least they've made another attempt to differentiate the performances from one another. It's also good that we get to see the girls showcase both skills. Like Daniela, Megan, and Yoonchae are all pretty good singers, but we haven't had a chance to see that yet. The Fearless groups don't really have a plot. There are issues with Manon still being sick. One of the episode ends with a producer asking her,
"You missed a lot of training. Can you talk about why and be honest?"
And she was like, what was I really doing? I was sick. I'm still sick. You can hear that I'm sick. There's no secret reveal that she was fucking off and doing nothing. There's no payoff. I think it's just another end of episode hook to get you on to episode 6. So she misses some rehearsals, but ends up doing fine. Fearless team, whichever one she's on, ends up winning. The Anti-Fragile teams are being story produced. One team is made up of Lara, Sophia, Yoonchae, and Emily, and it follows 3 of the most popular contestants trying to bring Emily up in the voting by proximity because the fans are still not living for Emily despite the fact that she's a great dancer. Conversely, the other team is made up of Samara, another top contestant, Megan, who is totally middling, and Ilya and Carly, who are in the bottom like 3. They're not popular. Megan has taken on Adela's part. She's even wearing her costume. There's a very Phoenix rising from the ashes, I'm carrying the torch for my dead mother energy to it. It's really emotional for Megan. Her bestie is gone. And Ilya feels insecure because the way the elimination was presented, the last spot was between her and Adela. So there's turmoil within the group, and they're also just way less popular than the other team. So Carly and Ilya especially believe that they're going home. There's some variation, but after the voting, most of the girls have maintained a similar rank. The only major change is that Daniela jumped from 17th in round 1 to 5th in round 2. She had a great showing. She was definitely the star of her group, and she had the most vocally challenging part. This was a huge boost for her. Otherwise, there aren't really any upsets. In this episode, they do their own version of Drag Race's Who Should Go Home Tonight and Why, but they ask each contestant which of the 5 other girls they would want to debut with, and they promised not to share the results, but it aired at the elimination before the results were announced. I don't really care to get into the specifics of the numbers. The girls were asked a question, they answered because they were told it would remain private, and then that promise from production was broken. This and the surprise survival show are the biggest ethical concerns when it comes to the doc. Like, is contestant welfare a priority at all? Because both decisions from the company had major detrimental impacts on the girls' mental health.
You have to create that drama.
Mitra, president of Hybe X Geffen at Hybe America, is the face, or more accurately, she's the heel. The clip of her saying,
It's entertainment.
in cold cruelty with a smile that doesn't really meet her eyes was chilling, but also incredible television. I hate to say it, I really do. The label is story producing towards a specific outcome. And Mitra knows that because not only is she overseeing the making of Katseye, she's an executive producer on this documentary. She knows she's on camera. And if she's willing to pull stunts on the girls for entertainment, it doesn't surprise me that she's also willing to play punching bag for the audience to direct their outrage at. If there's one silver lining I could point to for putting the girls through this, is that it did get them a lot of exposure, and the girls come off the documentary looking so good. Being the victim is a sympathetic position, and I do think in a really weird backwards way they've encouraged the audience to support all of the girls whether or not they made it into the group. I still think the reality TV treatment is nasty, and obviously these girls did not know they were signing up for that. It kind of rallies you to get behind these girls. It's like you're rooting for the little guy. Even Katseye, like, obviously they cooperate with the company, but they're framed also as being a victim of process. Anyways, after trying to turn the girls on each other, they announced the next 4 outs: May, Ilya, Brooklyn, and Carly, who were the bottom 4 in the voting results. I don't know if production considered any of these girls seriously for the group.
Not a single person voted me to be in their group. And I was like, if nobody wants me here, why am I here?
Brooklyn was underdeveloped. They gave her decent center time, but things just weren't clicking, I guess.
Y'all wanted me out anyways. Like,
They're at a point with Ilya where they see her more as a solo artist.
I don't believe in putting people against each other to form a group.
Carly is a great singer, but she was overlooked the whole time. They didn't care about her. Again, justice for Carly.
It's about time to face reality.
May gets no screen time in the doc, unfortunately. She was someone that I really wanted to hear more from. Like, Celeste is brought on a little bit sooner, but at the last minute, they bring on Samara, Nayoung, Yoonchae, Ua, Hinari, and May. Samara gets a whole segment. We see her singing with her family in Brazil. Samara is a good singer. Nayoung, great singer, survival show veteran. Yoonchae is like an all-rounder. She's been training for 2 years. They don't tell us if she was training independently or if she was with a company. Ua, incredible dancer, and Hinari was brought on because they thought she had star quality. May doesn't get a little feature for us to get excited about. We get little glimpses of her vibrant personality, And that's kind of it. Perhaps she knew in her spirit that this was a stepping stone and she'd have an opportunity waiting in the wings because she has since debuted in Korea. This elimination was brutal. The girls are pissed. The lower level staff, who probably had nothing to do with deciding how all of this was delivered to the girls, they're all crying. Missy looks mortified. Lexi looks dead inside. Ilya starts getting heated because she's like, don't cry in my face. None of you even wanted me in the group. None of you voted for me in your lineups. It was nasty work. This is my least favorite thing about survival shows. I do not like a cry fest because each program like this wants a fucked up mid-season moment where the spectacle is about breaking down these teenagers to the point of tears, and the whole experience gets spoiled by the devastation. The girls are at their breaking point and most of them are feeling like they don't want to keep going. While preparing for Mission 3, the Manon versus everyone conflict comes to a head, and it's resolved in a single quiet conversation where they all sit in a circle and share their feelings. This is the drama! As a passive observer, I was expecting, at the very least, an argument. It was just chit-chat about Manon feeling insecure and the girls feeling disrespected by her work ethic, both of which get resolved by Manon showing up. Moving forward, she has a much more positive relationship with the girls now that they've addressed the elephant in the room. Like, the solution ended up being so simple. And unless some crazy shit happened behind the scenes that they deemed inappropriate to air, I would assume that the doc used their best evidence to convey this point. And if this was the juiciest version of this story that they could pastiche, babes, it's probably because there was nothing there. Anyways, when it comes to the actual challenge, the girls are split into 3 groups doing covers of Confident by Demi Lovato, Wannabe by the Spice Girls, and Buttons by the Pussycat Dolls. Mission 1 was about broad market testing and signaled towards a racially diverse group of vocalists. Mission 2 didn't actually give us an insight. I think it was to give Le Seraphim some lift as the Hybe girl group, despite being under Source. We don't need to get into that. Now, Mission 3 is about genre testing. They're really gauging what the sound should be. Mitra vaguely gestures towards how on survival shows like this, the company has an idea of what they want, but they are open to being surprised by the audience if they see something that the label doesn't. They also want to form a group that the audience is connecting with. This mission will play a key role in determining what kind of music the group should be making. And I think similar to Mission 1, the group with the most positive reception also fills an unmet need of the average K-pop fan. The industry is already saturated with groups doing the girl crush and the cute concepts. Music similar to Confident and Wannabe, like Blackpink and Twice, are both titans of those sounds. A lot of subsequent groups have modeled their sounds off of Twice and Blackpink's trajectories. We get the occasional cunty moment, but no girl group especially is doing sexy fierce the way that the Pussycat Dolls were. Some more established artists do capture this sound a little bit more. I'm thinking of like Hyolyn, Queen of the Endless Vacation. I'm thinking of Hwasa. Like, there are definitely people doing it. Girl groups might dabble, but that's pretty untapped potential. Buttons was absolutely the smash hit from the show, yielding a dance trend on TikTok and everything, which is exactly the type of viral moment a label craves when promoting a project. In terms of storylines, the Confident girls don't have much going on. Megan is having some difficulty with a belted high note. Marquise injures her back. This is the only time the doc focuses on her, and it's for about 20 seconds. For Buttons, Manon has a new attitude and she starts slaying. She really emerges as a contender for the final lineup here, and Sophia is so sick that she doesn't even remember the shoot day. Wannabe has the biggest moment when Lexi quits the competition. She stopped attending practice after the last elimination because rightfully she felt extremely disrespected, and now she's just completely disillusioned by the process. Missy and Mitra are both present when she quits the competition, and I think Mitra was trying to produce and goad a little bit more of a reaction from Lexi, but Lexi was at the end of her rope. Like, she was not going to give it to them. Lexi was a huge contender for the final lineup. Everyone really liked her, including Hitman Bang, so this is another upset of someone who really could have gone all the way. She also had a pretty good underdog storyline. She couldn't sing when she first arrived, and she was like not a super skilled dancer. She grows to be a decent singer pretty quickly. She also gets hip surgery during filming, so she overcomes a really big health obstacle too. The group is left adrift by her absence. Dream Academy pretends that the girls just got these assignments shortly before the performances, but the doc shows us that they've been working on a catalog of songs with original choreo throughout all of TND, and they've already began Mission 3 rehearsals before the announcement goes out to the public. Like when the girls are surprised by the MC saying which groups they're in, they're acting. Lexi was the center of the Wannabe performance. There's old footage from before Dream Academy started where Lexi is starting out the song. She's been locked into Wannabe for quite some time. Now Emily and Samara have to lay down new vocals, and the choreo has to be adjusted for a missing person. It's also wild to me that these clearly are not live performances, but such a big deal was made about Megan hitting the belt while dancing. The mission happens. Everyone does a great job. All of the performances are really good, but this time the girls are sent home by production and not based on audience votes, because if it was raw score only, then 2 Katseye members would have gone home. Since Confident wasn't really received well, in my opinion, it's the worst of the 3 songs. Ua got the lowest number of votes. She comes in as a skilled dancer, but had virtually no time to develop vocally. Her elimination is not very shocking. But then, Nayoung, who ranked 3rd, and Celeste, who ranked 6th, are the other 2 eliminated. And they were both part of Buttons. No one is safe at the Dream Academy. Celeste's elimination felt kind of random, especially on the week where she's ranked the highest so far in the competition. Like, she was climbing. I think she's another contestant that they didn't really take seriously. When they did the TND rankings leading into the start of Dream Academy, Celeste is one of the bottom 5. I also think with Lexi going home, and now that they're approaching the top 10, they know who they want in the final lineup. Nayoung has been consistently at the top throughout the competition, and she's probably the strongest vocalist on the cast. She's not a spectacular dancer, but she's not terrible. She mentioned that being a soloist is her eventual dream, and then production was like, okay, we need to cling on to that morsel of information and spin it to justify sending home the favorite. Like, she was rank 1 in the first week, and then now she's ranked 3rd. She's been really consistent the whole time. They spin it as though wanting to be a soloist means she would be less committed to this project, despite the fact that she's been on multiple survival shows, and she even went on to do another one after Dream Academy. Like, she's really trying. Laura has a confessional after the eliminations, the timing of which is almost comical, where she's like, yeah, originally I did dream of being a soloist, but now my new dream is being in a girl group. And I think both can be true. A lot of K-pop group members will pursue solo activities while continuing to perform as a group. I understand maintaining a strong identity in the early years, but it's possible for people to do other projects. It's not a good reason. It's not a good reason. That's my whole thing. This episode also has a wild scene where we check back in with Naysha and Adela after getting cut from the program, but besides holding hands for a really beautiful shot, this conversation doesn't have a ton of substance. Like, they just talk about how it sucks and that some people are still in the program who aren't as dedicated as they were. That's the thrust of the conversation, and unfortunately, it's not very interesting. The finale happens. They sing the corny "We Are the World" song before some of their dreams get crushed forever. Then there are 2 performances of original songs, Girls Don't Like and Dirty Water. Both are pop hits, and the girls do really well. The last episode contends with the pressure of this moment. It's make or break, and everything rides on this one night. Some of the girls are really confident they're gonna make it. Some of the girls just know that they're not. Emily shows us her manifestation journal. Like, you can really feel how bad she wants it. Azrella has a really heartbreaking conversation with Daniela about how she just knows that it's the end of the line for her, because there's been comparison happening all season between the girls of similar backgrounds. Like, the conversation being had is that it's either Azrella or Lara. It can't be both. It's either Samara or Manon. It can't be both. Yoonchae now has a way stronger chance of being in the group because Nayoung was sent home. There was basically this attitude throughout the season that there could only be one Indian girl in the group, only one Korean girl, only one black girl, and this idea is discussed through Azrella's point of view. She has this really heartbreaking optimism where she's pretty confident that Lara is going to be in the group, but because Lara is going to make it, she will not. And it's not as if Ezrella doesn't want to debut anymore, but she's simultaneously excited about another Indian girl getting it because it is a big deal for representation. Naisha is similarly thrilled that Manon made the group. When Naisha was packing her bags, her final wish was that a black girl made it into the group. So despite the eliminated girls not getting the result they wanted, they're still really supportive of the girls who did make the final lineup of Katseye. A lot of the girls post-show have maintained really positive relationships with each other, whether they debuted or not. The reason why I think they had the final lineup picked out is because this last episode was ranked on a mixture of audience voting and judges' scores. And the judges' scores can be anything. As long as they're plausible, they can have whatever final lineup they want, and they adjusted their scores based on the actual audience scores. That's my opinion. I think throughout the duration of the show, especially because of how the label and the audience were so aligned, I think Sophia and Lara were essentially locked in, and that they built the rest of the group around those two. Watching the girls get sent home this episode is like, it's really upsetting, and you can tell a lot of them are really trying to put on a brave face, which is almost more sad. When it comes to the final lineup, the show has repeated time and time again that they really want cohesion, uniformity, symmetry. So I don't think it's like unintentional that there's only like a height difference of 2 inches between the shortest and the tallest member of Katseye, and they're all of a pretty similar body type. When you look at the creative design meeting, when they show the fashion illustrations of the 6 girls in a line, the actual group evokes a similar image. Ezrella, Emily, Samara, and Marquise go home. Emily is the face of this failure. Adela is here to console her. There's a beautiful shot of them hugging. It's very sad. All of the girls are crying. The members of Katseye are all thrilled to have made it. They celebrate with their families. Megan's mom, who's a recurring character, brings them leis as a congratulation because Megan is from Hawaii. This whole montage of quick clips at the end, Emily and Adela crying, Ezrella crying, Megan and Manon being in the car with their leis on. All of these quick cuts are underscored with Happier Than Ever by Billie Eilish. And the choice to end your documentary with a song about moving on from a shitty relationship is just painfully self-aware of this bittersweet ending. That's the doc. It'll be so sad when I have to say goodbye.
Otherwise, I feel like a psychopath.
Overall, I found aspects of Popstar Academy to be really compelling. Some parts are quite raw, seeing the girls struggle mentally and physically for success in a harsh, callous environment. I found the insights from production to be really interesting, but I was frustrated at times with the way the doc obscured their intentions or asked the audience to infer meaning based on more frivolous statements. If they really wanted to show the dark underbelly, we would have seen way more meeting footage, because I do think they present aspects of the truth, but we will never know the whole truth, even though they shared quite a bit. A benefit of making a video like this so long after the doc has come out is that a lot of girls have seen success in the entertainment industry. I've already mentioned that Adela has a budding solo career. She's making really interesting music about getting burnt by the industry, and Hell hath no fury like a woman scorned. I'm here for it. A lot of the girls are still training and have applied their skills to other places. Emily, Ua, and Naisha are working dancers, which isn't surprising. Abby, Ilya, Carly, and Brooklyn are also pursuing solo music projects. May has debuted in a K-pop group called Say My Name with former IZ*ONE and AKB48 member Hitomi. Nayoung is fighting for her life to be a singer. She was on a survival show and she was supposed to debut in a vocal group, but they seem to have very quietly disbanded at some point last year. The industry hates her. She's like Kim Bora 2.0. Most of the other girls seem to be taking it easy. Rumors keep getting floated around that Marquise got signed with one of the big K-pop labels. Some are saying it's YG, some are saying it's JYP, but there is no proof. I've not been able to verify this anywhere. I think one person just lied. She also went dark on Instagram for a while and then only started posting recently. So I think that's why people thought she was training with a label, because typically your social media access is restricted. If she debuts, I would love to see it. We know the final lineup of Katseye. They are performing at a bunch of major festivals this summer, so the likelihood of a new release is really high, especially because they haven't done much in the last year, but they are rumored to have a comeback in May, which makes sense because they only have 5 songs, and I would imagine they want to pad out the set list. Their debut was a smash. Oh, I didn't even write that as a pun. Their debut song is called Debut. It is more girl crush than Pussycat Dolls, but then they also did Touch, which is the cute song, but they're doing really well. The girls are all extremely talented. Their 2024 Mama Awards performance was to die for. I wish we got to know a little bit more about a couple members from the doc. Like Megan has an inner life that we see. Lara has an inner life that we see. Manon has an inner life. Sophia, we get a little bit. Daniela, we get a little bit. Yoonchae, we barely get anything. Sophia is a great singer, an even better leader. Yoonchae was an all-rounder the whole show. I don't think they emphasized this enough. Megan and Daniela, great singers, even better dancers. Lara is that girl. She's an Instagram baddie. She has the voice that can fill a stadium. She recently came out as queer, which we love to see it. The closet doors were, in fact, glass, but it is a brave thing to do to be in the entertainment industry, be 19 with 1 million followers, and come out. I salute you, Diva. At the time when they were filming, that Manon was really underdeveloped, but I think she benefited a lot from off-camera training time in a more stable environment where the deal is locked in, people aren't coming and going, you can't get cut whenever, and I think she rose to the challenge. She might still get blocked in the choreo sometimes. Whoever they're working with hasn't really nailed the 6-person formations just yet, but the threshold for some K-pop idols to debut can be quite low, and they just never improve past where they started. Manon is a way better singer and dancer than she was on the show, and with these girls, like, they're 6 superstars and the sky's the limit. I've talked way more than enough. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. This topic has been on my mind for months, so I'm glad I've been able to like talk through my thoughts on the show. Did you guys watch the show? Do you want more videos like this from me? I love to chat about TV and film. Should I make the Boys Planet video that I threatened to make and then never followed through on? Should I remake the Eyes One video that I unlisted because the audio was fucked up? No promises. Absolutely no promises. Yeah, thank you very much for watching. Who is your Katseye bias? I don't have one. I don't really pick those. Are you paying attention to the girls separately? I'm streaming Say My Name. I'm streaming Adela. I'm fans of both of their music. I'm subscribed to Carly. I am keeping tabs on what all of these girls are doing. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed, I have a Patreon. You can tip me on coffee. You can tip me on YouTube. And I appreciate you being here nonetheless. Buttons by the Pussycat Doll. Not the Pussycat Dolls. Like, subscribe, drink lots of water and get some rest. I'm gonna be on vocal rest for the next 8 weeks because my throat is so sore.